We've still got a few people rolling in, so we're gonna give it 2 or 3 minutes to let everyone jump on. As a bit of housekeeping, just to while we wait. If you can't hear me right now, through our this is our first real run through of the webinar. We've done quite a few trials. We found that Google Chrome works best. So if you're on a different web browser and you're struggling to hear us, you may want to try Google Chrome. Again, for those of you just jumping on, I see more people jumping on. We're just waiting a few minutes to let everyone get in and to make sure that they can hear us. So if you can hear me right now, sit tight, and we'll get started in probably about 2 more minutes. As a reminder, we found that Google Chrome works best for the presentation. So if you're on something else like Microsoft Edge or Internet Explorer and you're struggling to hear, you may want to give Google Chrome a try. There is also a chat function that's being monitored by Jeff Gould, our marketing manager. So if you need to chat, he can address anything on there. Okay, it looks like attendees are pretty much here. So we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Ben Albrecht, the Director of Sales at Leer, and thank you for joining us today. We've got a lot of good information for you. A few bits of housekeeping items before we kick this off. This is our first of 3 webinars. All the 3 of the webinars are the same. So if you're thinking you need to come to the second one, you don't unless you want to hear everything again. We will also be recording this and placing this on our website. So if you have to cut off for some reason, or you want someone else at your organization to hear the webinar, you'll be able to access that if you can't attend any of the other 2 sessions. As mentioned, Google Chrome is what we found works best for the webinar. So if you're using another browser and you're having trouble hearing us, that'd be a suggestion for you. Also, we are both Brian, our Director of Engineering, who's on here as well with me. We're both obviously, given everything that's going on, doing this from home. Overall, our trial runs have been pretty good as far as connectivity. But if for some reason your internet cuts out, or hopefully it doesn't, but our internet cuts out, give us a second to jump back on. And again, if you miss something, this will be recorded, or we have 2 more sessions that will come up. We've also got everyone muted right now. We're going to go through our presentation, which won't take any more than a half hour. So we'll have a lot of time for Q&A. And at the end, you can use the text box to send over any questions. But if for some reason you have a question right now, send it in when you have it, because our moderator is taking those questions and he'll send them through to us at the end so we can address them. So don't forget something you want to ask or you want cleared up throughout the presentation. So again, thanks for being here. Here's our contact information. In a couple slides, I'll provide you with the link to the resources for R290 related materials. But in the meantime, if you have specific questions or perhaps something that we're not going to answer in total detail on the call here today, please write down our contact information. You can also find me on our website, and if it's something that's engineering related, I can direct you to Brian if you don't have a pen and paper handy right now. But this is where you can get a hold of us if you want to talk further on anything that we go over today. Looking at what we're going to cover today, so we're going to give you a brief history of Leer's refrigerants and just do a general overview of R290. More importantly, we're going to go into detail as to why we chose R290. I think a lot of you are probably pretty aware of where we're at, but we felt it was important to give you a unified message on our R290, where we're at for our rollout plan, and then we'll answer a lot of frequently asked questions that you or someone at your organization may have. We do have an FAQ available. You can access that as well as a lot of other resources that you're going to hear about today via our website. That's www.leerinc.com/eco-friendly. So again, we'll put this webinar on there once we're done. You can find the FAQs now and some principal resources, and we're going to continue to update that. So I encourage each of you to at least give it a look, because there could be some good information for you, your organization, or some of your customers in the field. So just a brief history of Leer refrigerants. And this is a table where you're going to see some of these different metrics talked about throughout the presentation. But I'll start at the top. So we've got Leer's years of use. So you'll see when we've used the refrigerant. ODP is ozone depletion potential. So lower is better. GWP is global warming potential. Again, lower is better. And this is the metric that is used to determine what refrigerants are allowed in certain states that have moved forward with restrictions. Thermal conductivity, which we'll go into some more detail, higher is better. And then we've given what we feel is the performance level of the refrigerant. So for those of you who have been in the industry for quite some time, you probably remember R12. We used that through 1994. From 94 to 2007, we went to 134a before we switched to R404a in 2007. You'll see R404a is TBD. And the reason for this, and I'll probably repeat it to you 3 or 4 times, is that R404a is not going away, and we'll explain more of that. We're going to be running dual refrigerants for the foreseeable future for R404a and R290. You also see R448a listed there. I know that a lot of you have heard about R448a. This was highly considered by Leer. We even went through and tested the bulk of our merchandisers for R448a and ultimately decided that it wasn't a good fit for us and the ice industry, and we'll explain why. And then again, you can see the performance there. R290 by far is the best performing refrigerant that we've either used throughout Leer's history or have tested. So what is R290? Basically, R290 is refrigeration grade propane. It's not the same as your cooking or heating propane. A lot of people think it's like the propane tank that you use for your gas grill. It's not the same. There's one thing that's different is there's no smell. It's a natural and non-toxic refrigerant, and it's the preferred alternative to hydrofluorocarbon refrigerants. So we're going to talk a lot more about this. I'm going to pass this over to Brian, who's going to talk you through a little bit more of why we chose R290. I'll circle back with you guys in a few minutes.
Thank you, Ben. So now we're going to look more closely at the primary drivers that led Leer to choose R290 as a refrigerant of the future. Just quickly here, we're going to be looking at performance, environmental impacts, and regulatory compliance. Diving right into reason number one, which we classified as performance. As you saw in the table, Ben showed R290 has a higher thermal conductivity than other refrigerants, enabling higher performance and lower operating costs. The higher performance of the refrigerant enables lower high side compressor pressures. We believe that will lead to longer compressor life. And R290 also delivers consistent performance. It's easier to size and verify cap tube and charge amounts. And for the refrigeration technicians in the audience that may be familiar with what glide is, the glide of R290 is 0, where R404a currently in use has a glide of value of 1 degree, which is quite small and manageable. 448a, meanwhile, has a 7-degree glide, which is rather significant and can make sizing and troubleshooting of refrigeration a little bit more difficult. So here's a slide summarizing the performance and thermal conductivity of R290 compared to legacy refrigerants. Again, as Ben noted earlier, higher is better. So actual performance will vary depending on the product configuration, but R290 clearly has a higher heat transfer potential than other refrigerants. You'll note that R448a, although currently a viable alternative refrigerant, actually has poorer performance or thermal conductivity as compared to even R404a, the current refrigerant widely in use. So reason number two, R290 is environmentally friendly. It's classified again as a hydrocarbon refrigerant, natural, non-toxic, and is considered a top alternative to the current HFC refrigerants. Has a near zero global warming potential, or GWP, zero ozone depleting potential, ODP, and has broad commercial market acceptance, both domestically and internationally. Some major commercial refrigeration manufacturers have transitioned their complete product lines to R290. And increasingly, retailers are beginning to request and demand environmentally friendly refrigerants. It's also projected to have a long-term approval as a commercial refrigerant. And one item to note, that industry and regulatory bodies are working on increasing charge limitations, which will open R290 up to even broader application ranges. Here's just a summary of the ozone depletion potential and global warming potential of R290 as compared to other refrigerants. You'll see it's the highest performing and lowest environmental impact compared to both legacy and alternative refrigerants. Let's talk about regulatory compliance. The hydrofluorocarbon phase down, or HFC phase down, has been a complex and confusing saga. R404a was originally classified by the EPA SNAP guidelines with a phase out date of January 1st of this year. That was vacated by the US Supreme Court a couple of years ago. But then the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, as you may be familiar with, actually adopted those SNAP rules and set a phase-out date for R404a in California. Basically, they kept the SNAP guidelines for January 1 of 2020. There's also a U.S. Climate Alliance. It's at 23 states, I believe, currently, and growing, of states that are essentially going to be following California's lead, much as they do in other regulatory activities. Washington State, Vermont, and New York are notable states that have legislation and action and phase-in dates pending. Your state may not be affected yet, but it will be at some point in the future. R448a is also considered it's a good alternative refrigerant right now, but it's considered a transitory or temporary or interim refrigerant. The European Union F-gas legislation is going to restrict GWP limits to 150 in 2022, which will remove R448a as a viable refrigerant in those markets. Domestically, that will probably follow suit within a year or two also. So again, 448A is considered a temporary refrigerant solution, whereas R290 and other hydrocarbon refrigerants are considered final solution refrigerants. We've included some links to a couple of white papers from Emerson and Bracco that kind of support the position we have and give a little bit more detailed overview of some of the activities going on. So Emerson, the presentation highlights some international and domestic activities. Emerson and other major manufacturers are pushing for states to take a consistent approach with both energy and environmental controls. It is difficult for suppliers, manufacturers, and yourselves as customers to navigate a changing regulatory atmosphere with 50 states acting independently. The Embraco presentation also talks about international and domestic regulatory activities, but it expands to talk about R290 as a final solution refrigerant that's already used widely internationally in commercial and air conditioning applications. And again, it references R448A, R449A as transitory or temporary solutions. So we have a slide kind of more specifically comparing R290 versus R448A. As Ben noted, we did consider R448A as an alternative refrigerant for Leer. As we noted, R290 has superior thermal conductivity, lower environmental impacts, and the table on the right kind of summarizes some of the key points we looked at, or decision makers or drivers: performance, environmental impact, serviceability, compliance, longevity, international market acceptance. All those factors point toward R290 and made it Leer's choice for our refrigerant of the future. I'm going to turn it back over to Ben. He will recap here quickly and move on to our next, the rollout plan, I believe.
Yeah, so just a quick recap on why we chose R290 versus alternatives. Performance would be one of the main ones. It's the most energy efficient by far. It's going to extend your compressor life and overall just improve your efficiency and give you some consistency. So when we look at what you've come to expect from a quality Leer merchandiser that can be in the field for quite a long time, we felt that R290 was the way to go. It's also, as Brian mentioned, eco-friendly. It's got that ultra-low GWP and a broad commercial acceptance. I mean, frankly, we felt that with 448A, we weren't giving you guys something that was around for the long haul. We've invested a lot into our facility to make sure that we're successful with R290 moving forward, and we wanted you guys to feel the same way. So rather than introduce an alternative refrigerant in 448A that you'd have to keep on your service trucks for maybe just a few years, wanted to give you something that you can invest in for the long haul as well. And then the last reason is that 50-state compliance with California phasing out R404a as of January 1st of this year. We needed something that could suit that market and also the other states that we expect to follow. So I'm going to transition into our rollout plan and tell you a little bit about where we're at Leer now, what's available, what's not available. As a reminder, for those of you who might have jumped on a little late, you've got that chat function. All of you are muted right now, but please, if you have questions, send them through right now through the chat so that our Jeff, our marketing manager, can moderate those and send them through at the end. So the more questions, the better. We're happy to take them. So start sending them through if you have some. So where we're at as of today, as a reminder, R404a is not going away. We are committed to running dual refrigerants for the foreseeable future. So for those of you who are not in California that are maybe not quite ready to switch or a little hesitant, rest assured we've got you taken care of for the foreseeable future with R404a. For California specific, if something was manufactured in 2019, you're okay to place that unit in the California market. We have a very limited stock available at Leer. There are still some available, but everything that's 2019 could be R404a for California. If it's a unit that was manufactured in 2020, it must be R290. So to summarize there, California, if it's a 2020 unit, it needs to be R290. And if it's a 2019 unit, it can be R404a. So reach out to us or your distributors if you have questions on that. Our most popular models are currently available to manufacture in R290, and we're going to go through over the next 3 slides, each one listed out by availability. Most of these are going to be primarily make to order with an initial 10-day lead time. So we're going to be working up to our standard lead times, which are typically 6 to 7 days, and we'll have very limited inventory on R290 to start. Now, as we move forward in this, we do plan to build inventory. We'll continue to keep people updated on that. But for now, where we're at today, everything is primarily make to order. So if you have something, if you're in California or if you're in another state and you want to transition to R290, make sure you plan ahead and get with us or your distributor to discuss that. Any large orders, we would need to evaluate for lead times. So again, we'll chat about that. Another cool update for those of you purchasing R290 is that all R290 ice merchandisers are now NSF certified. So this is a standard offering for the R290 line. For the R404a line, for those of you that have been purchasing NSF, you know that this is an add-on feature with an upcharge. This is now included in R290. So keep that in mind if any of you need NSF. And as always, contact your Leer distributor. They can discuss availability and pricing, make sure you're taken care of for whatever needs you have. So this is the first of 3 slides that shows where we're at on each model. This one specifically is for our indoor models. And there's essentially 4 phases. There's a 1A, a 1B, and then a 2 and a 3. So 1A, anything listed on here, for instance, our Model 40 cold wall or our Model 100 auto defrost. These are indoor units. Those are all approved, have the required certified listings, which we'll talk about in a minute, and they're ready for production with that approximate 10-day lead time. If it's a 1B item, so for instance, your Model 30 cold wall, you're going to see there it says a 4 to 5 week lead time. Now, all of these vary a bit as far as where they're at in the process. There's basically 2 things that needed to be done in order to get it to that 10-day lead time. That's 1, the testing at Leer to make sure that we're sizing everything appropriately and ready for production on that end. And then we have the agency and certification approvals that need to be completed for us to be able to sell it to the commercial market. So some of these are a little further along, but for sake of simplicity, if you're looking at something that's a 1B, plan for a little extra lead time, and those ones are continually being updated. So we'll update this on that www.leerinc.com. slash eco dash friendly. We'll be updating these dates for you, these lead times. The last one on this slide that I want to highlight is our Model 155. So this is our tall and deep 155 cubic foot indoor merchandiser. Some of you may know it as a BAM merchandiser. This is a phase 2, and we're expecting phase 2 to be a June 2020 release date. That is somewhat open to, we're dependent a little bit on the agency approvals. We need to submit boxes to UL to get UL listed, and we're a little bit at the mercy of what their lead time is for testing there. And given everything that's going on in our world today, that could be a bit fluid. So if you have a phase 2, again, get with us through your distributor so that we can talk through what your needs are. Transitioning to our outdoor models, again, this is the same setup as the indoor. You'll see a phase 1A, which are ready to go. These are our heavy hitters that, based on historical data, we sell most of the time. So we should have your needs met here. For many of the other ones that aren't sold as often, we'd have a 4 to 5 week lead time. And again, there's different levels of where each of these are at. And then the only one that's phase 2 on this list would be the equivalent to our indoor Model 155 tall and deep band box, and that's the solid door version. This is the last of the rollout plan, and these are a bit of our specialty units. These are either in one of the 4 phases. The first 2 are our pallet load ice merchandisers. So the PL150 is our front loading single pallet ice merchandiser, and the PL225 is the 2 pallet side loading with the ramp ice merchandiser. So for R290, those ones are available as a phase 2 item, roughly around a June lead time. Our VM40 and VM85 are 2 of our 2 vending machines. Both of these are now approved. So even though it's a 1A and a 1B, the VM85 fell into our phase 1B. But as we move these forward, and you can see we're starting to wrapping up some of the 1B lead times to get to the 10 days. And then our transport units, these are phase 3. So these will come after the phase 2 items. We don't have a clear lead time to give you yet. As we learn more and can share more, we certainly will update our website. But if you have an immediate need for an R290 transport, or you need it to be California compliant, again, reach out to your distributor or us, and we can talk through that, those specifics. Okay, I'm going to pass it over to Brian one more time. Again, keep sending those questions through, and I'll circle back with you guys to finish up in a few slides.
Thank you, Ben. We're going to talk for just a minute about the upgraded refrigeration equipment and processes we've invested in our factory. We're going to have improved process quality and safety control on our R290 products. We've invested in helium-based pressure leak test that will be completed prior to charging. We're actually starting to do that on both R290 units and R404 units. Clarity to charge the hydrocarbon refrigerant. We've invested in precision charge metering equipment there. Also invested in ultrasonic welding equipment to seal the system completely after charging. And then after charging, an additional hydrocarbon refrigerant leak check to confirm the process ports are sealed tightly. And you can kind of see in the image there the black walls, if you will, around our charging cell. That's just for FYI. That's for containment and proper ventilation to exhaust any small amounts of refrigerant released during the charging process. We've also invested in backup power generation to ensure the safety of our equipment and our operators in the event of a power outage. So improved manufacturing process control and particularly on the leak control side. talk about some of the common questions that have been presented. The first one clearly is R290 refrigerant flammable? Yes, it is flammable. But a small amount of refrigerant is used, less than 5.3 ounces or 150 grams. As I noted in the previous slide, the system is hermetically sealed with only welded or brazed joints. There are no flare fittings or service valves to have potential for leak. And the system is UL tested and certified to ensure safe operation. Additionally, R290 is already widely accepted by key retailers such as Target, and some large commercial refrigeration manufacturers have already transitioned to this refrigerant. So in summary there, you can see it is flammable, but the amount used is small. The system is fully sealed. There's no threat or practical fear of the use of R290. Here's again a few questions from our previously published FAQ, re-summarized. Any storage, handling, or transportation requirements to be aware of? There are no special considerations for the warehousing, handling, or transport of the ice merchandisers themselves. For those who are going to be carrying the refrigerant on their service vehicles, we're going to recommend basically 1 pound dosing cylinders, and those can be carried on service vehicles following applicable state and federal transportation guidelines for hazardous materials. Most refrigerants are already considered a hazardous material, as well as the gases used for cutting, brazing, and welding, and those are all been currently transported without issue. So there's really minimal risk or concern about having to carry a small dosing cylinder on your service vehicle. How will I know if my unit contains R290 refrigerant? The Leer serial tag will continue to indicate the type and amount of refrigerant used in the system, as it always has. There will also be various labels used across on the product and product packaging. We'll have a label by the evaporator and labels by the condenser, noting that flammable refrigerant is used in that product. Service and replacement parts, what will be available? We'll continue to offer typical service and replacement parts for R290 systems, just as we have for all refrigeration systems in the past. Compressor warranty will be the same 5-year compressor warranty you're accustomed to. Any specialized training for servicing R290 units? We continue to recommend trained and qualified refrigeration technicians perform maintenance and service. And where can I get that refrigeration technician training? Leer suggests the training and certification available from the Refrigeration Service Engineers Society, or RSES. And we do have coming soon an R290 service guide that will answer a lot of your service questions. The guide covers guidelines for diagnosing and servicing R290 refrigerated products. And I believe I'm going to turn it back over to Ben for a couple more frequently asked questions and a wrap up.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And again, keep sending those questions through. Thanks to those who are sending over any questions you have. So how does this impact merchandise already in the field? It doesn't. Everything that's in the field is grandfathered in. You don't have to worry about any of these changes. We'll continue to supply replacement and service parts as we do currently and as we do with previous refrigerants that we've used at Leer. You cannot, however, retrofit merchandisers, R404a merchandisers to be compatible with R290. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, has ruled against this. So R290 can only be used on new equipment. I mentioned it earlier, but our R290 merchandisers will all be DOE compliant. They'll all be UL listed for US and Canada, and they'll be NSF certified. So the main change from our R404a is the NSF certification. It's a standard on R290 units where it needs to be requested for 404a. And it's not going to impact how your unit runs. For those of you on the call who are in the packaged ice industry and we're at the IPIA, we brought an R290 and an R404a unit and looked at them side by side. And you really couldn't tell the difference outside of we put a natural refrigerant sticker on those. The internal components will be unique to the refrigerant we use, but the unit itself is going to look and feel and operate the same, whether it's R404a or R290. Will Leer phase out the current refrigeration for R404a? The short answer is no. We are committed to running dual refrigerants for the foreseeable future. So we expect that this is going to be driven by one of two things. It's either going to be driven by the legislation, like we've seen in California and other states following suit. So if your specific state decides to adopt similar legislation, then you would be required to make that switch. If they don't, then you can use R404a for the foreseeable future. The second side would be is if you guys, our customers, start transitioning to demanding R290, then that could impact that as well. But for the near future here, please don't worry about if you want to stick with R404a. We know everyone's at different levels of their comfortability. We'll have R404a in stock. We've got a full warehouse right now for you guys. So if you need something now that's R404a, we're ready to meet your needs. So feel free to reach out. If your business operates in California, do you have to switch? Yes. The state mandated that any units manufactured in 2020 cannot contain 404a. If you do not operate in California, again, that's entirely up to you. There's currently no SNAP or CARB impact on your business. It is likely that other states will follow suit, but there's no immediate requirement if you do not want to make a switch. And if you are if you aren't in California and you do want to make the switch, yep, you can. R290 is accepted in all 50 states, and as we've mentioned, there's a lot of products inside of stores, different retail locations that made the switch, frankly, a few years back. And again, another link to our website where you can find more FAQs if yours wasn't on there, or you can send it through now, and we'll answer it in a minute here. So what else is new? We continue to send you links to the website because we went through a new branding and launched a new website about 2 months ago. So if you haven't been on there, I encourage you to take a look. We've made a point to provide resources that are helpful to you guys. There's a lot of videos. There's new cut sheets, different guides that can help you, and we're going to continually update our website to provide you with service documents and features that can benefit you and your businesses. We've also got the eco-friendly refrigerant available. Obviously, you're on this call today, so you should be up to date on that. And then lastly, towards the end of the year, keep the lookout for some newer products related to some of our larger units. We invested in a new large foaming fixture to continue to improve efficiency, performance, and be able to meet demand for some of our larger boxes, like our transports, our pallet loads, or those tall and deeps. So there'll be more to come later on this year on that. So to recap here today, so we're on our now fourth refrigeration upgrade and likely refrigeration of the future with R290, which is a natural, non-toxic refrigeration grade propane. We ultimately chose R290 versus R404a because of the performance, the fact that it's eco-friendly, and it's in for the long haul. It's 50-state compliant, and we expect that it will be that unlike 448, it will be around for the long haul. Our plans at Leer, we talked you through the rollout. Again, check out the website for availability. We'll continue to update you over the next 12 months as we roll out all the models. but for now, we should have something that meets your needs. The question we get all the time is about the flammability. Yes, it is flammable, but there's no threat or fears to users. Again, this is widely accepted in the retail environment, and I can assure you that if some of these large retailers are comfortable with R290 inside their stores, there's not a threat for the small amount of refrigerant we use with our ice merchandisers. And finally, the Q&A. We're going to transition into that. That now we'll take questions. But again, feel free. We'll leave this screen up until we end. It's got some more contact information. Other than that, Brian and I will start fielding questions. Okay, so David, glad you made the move to natural refrigerants. Thanks, David. We are too. We'll be able to get a copy of the PowerPoint to share with our techs that explain the R290 changeover. Yep. If you, again, I'll go back to this link, the bottom bullet point there, leerinc.com/eco-friendly, we're going to have a copy of the presentation here in the webinar so that you can share it with your techs. Can we retrofit older units to R290? We touched on that. The EPA ruled that you cannot retrofit any older units to R290s. So if it's R404a, it does need to stay R404a. Brian, you want to take this one a little bit?
Sure. Essentially, this is a similar question. With 404 or 134, we could change condensers and the evaporators could work. With the new refrigerant, will the condensers work with the older evaporators? Essentially, you're not allowed to upgrade or convert a previous generation refrigerant to R290 refrigerant. Some of the final guidelines are still being in development here and will be changing over time. But essentially, you have to use all new components when you're doing a R290 refrigeration system. I can take this one also. Will compressor amp draws change? Not significantly. All the units are going to stay within their current recommended 20 amp circuit, dedicated circuit range. Those that are supplied with the traditional 15 amp cord will continue to be supplied that way, and our TDs and pallet loads will continue to be supplied with a quote unquote 20 amp cord. Ben?
Jody, what is the cost of R290? There is a bit of a premium for R290. Typically, it's about 8 to 12% higher than R404a. So I encourage you to reach out to your distributor if you want specific pricing. But that's kind of gives you a ballpark, Jody. One of the main things is as we mentioned, is NSF that is now standard on there. There's a little bit of labor there, but when you take that out, it's actually that it really is less of an impact of that 8 to 12%. So a little more labor involved, but that gives you an idea of what you're looking at. But again, I'd encourage you to reach out to your distributors if you have a specific question related to that. What type of equipment will be used for leak testing? What will be the repair standards for the propane system? Brian, you want to take that one?
Okay, for leak testing in our factory, as I mentioned, we're doing a helium leak test prior to charging. The evacuation process essentially checks for leaks, and then after charging, we will be checking for refrigerant leak with a hydrocarbon leak detector. The repair standards will be quite laid out in quite detail in service guideline document that we'll be posting here shortly, like either today or next week. Essentially, the repair standards are much as, and tools are similar to what has been used. The main changes are you want to use a shorter service gauge line set if possible, and to always have a hydrocarbon or flammable refrigerant leak detector available. And we make recommendations for those devices in the service guidelines document. How will techs check the charge if needed? Again, the service guideline document is going to walk through a lot of those topics. The first thing we're going to do is guide you through not having to check or break open the system. And then if necessary, it will provide guidance on how to open up the system, evacuate it safely, make your repairs, and recharge it appropriately. Transport regulations are still kind of open, and it's a bit of a gray area. The question is, will there be transport regulations? Those are still kind of to be determined. For now, we are continuing to ship our current transports into most markets. Question, what head pressure and suction pressure does R290 run at? Similar, but a little bit lower, generally speaking, than the 404 comparable unit. I don't have typical numbers right in front of me, but we can share that with those that are interested. Question to see the slide that had our contact information. Ben has put that up. And another question here, is there a parts list available of the new components that will be used in the R290 units? Yes, we're working on a parts list, so that will be available. In our R404a systems, we were able to switch out cap tubes when they go bad. How does it work on R290? Also, like our R404a system, if a compressor is changed, there's a pressure test and a vacuum before charge. How does it work in R290? Again, our service guideline document is going to go through all those steps for you. It's not unlike current refrigeration repair protocol. It's a little bit different in that you have process ports to work through instead of the traditional service ports, but that is all laid out in the service guideline document. What is the size of copper for cold wall? That has not changed. I believe we're using 5/16 copper in our cold wall. I'd have to double check, to be honest. What will be the standard PPE to service the equipment? Again, the service guidelines document is going to cover a lot of this. We may even do a follow-up webinar just on service guidelines after that information is put out. The key items that I've noted from the service document are they recommend a fan to kind of blow the refrigerant clear of anything that would leak, and a signage and making sure you don't have ignition sources near the repair area. Can we obtain this document? We're wrapping that up literally as we speak. Adam Stevens has been working on that diligently, and it should be ready here, if not today, early next week.
And we'll make sure that's posted on that eco-friendly the website. So again, there's going to be a lot of resources on there, so please take a look there.
Another question on service, can you release R290 or does it have to be recovered? That's covered in the service guideline document. There's some different suggested protocols for whether you're working on the unit indoors versus outdoors. That's covered in the service guideline document.
All right, it sounds like that's all the questions we had. If we didn't get to something or missed something, our contact information is on this slide. Check out the website for more information. We appreciate your time. We hope everyone has a good weekend. Stay safe and look forward to hearing from you guys.